What's up, everybody? Welcome to the video. We're going to be breaking down UFC 259, kind of going through the whole card, giving my final thoughts on each fight, talking some DraftKings, talking some betting, talking some strategy as well. What's up, everybody? Yeah, great card. Great card. Card of the year easily. And should be a good one. 15 fights, 3 title fights. It's stacked from top to bottom. And yeah, ready to make some money tonight. So before we get started, if you can leave a like on this video, subscribe to Karma Media, that would be awesome. Also, check out the website. You got the core plays and props on there, $9.99 a week. Posted the prize picks up in there, the monkey knife fight as well. And then Tyler does the core plays as well on there. And just lots of great stuff on there. So go check it out. Check out the website. But other than that, we're going to get into it, starting with the first fight of the night. And if you guys know me, you guys know that I do love targeting the first fight of the night. And I don't know, this is a tough one, especially on a 15-fight slate, just because both guys have never been knocked out. I do think this is going to be a very high-paced fight. It's just, I don't know if Batista is going to be able to knock out Jones. I kind of like Batista more from a betting perspective, but I do think he has the potential to knock him out. It's just, we saw how tough Jones is. I mean, he was almost finished. He was able to dig deep and ended up getting the finish in the second round in his last fight against Timur Valiev. So I do think Batista wins. I'm more so leaning towards a decision, so I'm not going to be too high on this fight. Honestly, I don't hate the price savings of Trevin Jones, because if he wins, it's going to be by finish. I don't see him winning a decision. Just somebody that's really low output, somebody that does have some power. We saw it in his last fight. So, yeah, as far as this fight goes, I don't have much of it. I don't have much Batista, if any at all. I do have a little bit of Jones just because of the price savings, but this is a fight I really don't want to, put my exposure on. We have 15 fights. We really got to pick and choose our spots. So I did take some stances, and we'll talk about them, especially in the ownership percentages. But I do have Batista in a parlay, and I like him a lot. I think this is a very winnable fight for him. Training at a very good camp. He's going to have the volume advantage. I like Batista to win a lot. But as far as DraftKings goes, it's really hard to get there, because I do think it's going to be striking for the majority of the fight. Maybe he does mix in some takedowns, but just hard to see him finishing Jones. I mean, it's very possible, but I'm leaning towards no, or at least like a late finish. And it's just hard to play him and then play your Amanda Nunes, your Islam Makachevs, Medic's, guys like that up there. So I like this fight from more so of a betting perspective. What's up, guys? I see you in the chat. What's up, James? How you doing? Sosa, I see you there. What's up, Aldo? I see you. Batista, yeah, I like Batista a lot. Hopefully get to done, have him in a parlay with Sean Brady, we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, should be a good first fight of the night. I think this is going to be an absolute war. Something else I was kind of looking at was the under 2.5. I don't hate. I think this is going to be one of those fights where they just kind of stand in the middle and bang. Will their durabilities hold up? I'm leaning towards yes. Both guys have never been knocked out, but it should be a fun fight regardless. What's up, Chris? I see you in the chat. How you doing? But yeah, we'll get into the next fight, and this is a fight that I think is going to be very important on the card. I think it's one of the more important fights on the entire card. Uros Medic versus Elon Cruz, and it's just because of the question marks. Uros Medic is somebody that's never seen the third round. He's never seen the decision. He went into the second round once, and it lasted 30 seconds in the second round. So that leaves me to believe that this fight has a really decent chance of ending early. And I'm not completely sold on, this Medic guy as of yet, a guy from the Alaskan fight scene, something we always, tend to fade. But he does look good. He's training at a good camp, Kings MMA. But there are those question marks. What happens if Elon Cruz comes out here and takes him down? Because, there are these guys on the Alaskan fight scene that were taking down Medic, which is an awful look. So what happens if Cruz takes him down? What happens if this fight gets extended? And it's just, we see it time and time again. These Contender Series guys, they've never been to a third round. They come into the UFC. They don't get that finish. They gas out. We've seen it time and time again. So I think for this fight, it's either a Medic finish early, or honestly, I can see Cruz grinding out either a decision, winning rounds 2 and rounds 3, or even getting a late finish as well. So either way, I see this fight scoring pretty decently. And I do have a decent amount of both. So I have around like 30% Medic, which is not bad. And then I have a decent amount of Cruz, around 21%. I don't expect him to win. My pick is definitely Medic to get it done early. But if Medic wins, it's probably a very good chance that it's going to be in the first round. Elon Cruz is somebody that's been finished in all 3 of his losses. We saw him get finished in like a minute in his last fight against Spike Carlisle. And I don't think he does well with the pressure, and that's exactly what Medic is going to bring. So I think this fight's important. for your tournaments. I do think it scores high either way. Some props I was looking at did not pull the trigger on it, but under 1.5 seems pretty decent. It's at plus money, plus 120. If Medic wins, it's going to be early. He has not won outside of that 1.5 mark. He's never been past that 1.5 mark. So I don't hate the under 1.5. I think it's like plus 120. Other than that, Medic first round is probably not a bad look. I mean, if he wins, it's probably in the first round. I think Medic first round KO is like plus 300. It's not bad, but yeah, ultimately I do like Medic to win the fight, but it's just the question marks. Is this guy the real deal? We'll definitely find out today. RJ says, please convince me on Medic. Yeah, I think if you're doing cash, I'd leave this out. If you're doing tournaments, I'd play both sides here. It's hard to convince myself on Medic. I've been going like back and forth on this fight because it's just the question marks. What happens if this does get extended? What happens if he does get taken down? Very, very sketchy fight. James says, might have to play Cruz on DK, fade the Alaskan fighters. Yeah, Cruz is not a bad play at all. I think he's going to be lowish owned, and I think he has a really good chance of winning as well. RJ says, anybody know Medic's takedown defense? So it's 100%. Because he's only had one fight in the Contender Series, and the dude did not shoot for a takedown, which I thought he probably should have in that fight, but he didn't. So it's 100%. But on the Alaskan fight scene, I did see two different fights where he was taken down by the bottom of the barrel guys. So sketchy. It's sketchy. But I'm gonna stick with Medic first round knockout there. Kepler says, good luck tonight, peeps. Good luck to you, Kepler. RJ says, all right, off of Medic and cash. Yeah, I would not probably play Medic and cash, especially when you got fighters like a Nunez, like an Islam up there. So, because it's just question marks. So, but in like a single entry, if you're looking for some decent upside in a single, I don't hate Medic in single. I'm not personally going there, but I don't hate it. All right, so we'll get into the next fight. A fight I don't necessarily love all that much from a DraftKings perspective. I do have some Lemos just because I think she's going to be decently low owned. So I'm sitting with around like 25% Lemos. I do think she's going to come in a little bit lower owned than that, maybe around the 20% range or less. And it's just because, the new DraftKings scoring system. I think that Lemos is going to bring a big pace. She lands nearly 6 significant strikes per minute. Souza lands about a third of that. She lands about 2, very low output. And I just really like Lemos to win. I honestly don't hate like a Lemos in cash. I think she's safe, one of the safer plays on the slate. And I do have a bet on her as well. So this fight is the most likely to go to decision out of all the fights. And I do think it's going to probably go to decision outside of Lemos maybe knocking out Souza. But even then, Souza's tough. She's never been knocked out. So I like Lemos by decision. She's sitting at around minus 250, minus 260 on the money line. I like the decision prop at plus 110. I think it's a much better price than laying that minus 240. So I like the decision there. I like her to get it done. As far as DraftKings goes, I think she's going to put on a really big pace. I think she can get takedowns herself, top control. Don't necessarily see a finish, but I wouldn't be completely shocked if she went out there and finished Souza. I just think she's the much better fighter in this fight. And, Souza's looked awful, man. I mean, she's looked so bad. She's slow. She doesn't have any output. She was struggling with fighters like Ashley Yoder. I like Lemos here to get it done. 25% on DraftKings. As far as Souza, really hard to get there for me. I mean, if she wins, it's probably a very boring fight. I don't see it scoring well either way. So, yeah, not going to have much Souza, if any at all. More so on the Lemos train for this one. Dave says, I'm late, but what's up, Brady? What's up, Dave? How you doing? Ready for this card? 15 fights. All of them are fantastic. I'm ready to win some money tonight. So, getting into the next fight. And we have Sean Brady versus Jake Matthews. So, this is really, really interesting here. I think Sean Brady wins. It's just how much does he score? So he has been scoring quite a bit on DraftKings as of late. It's just this is going to be probably his toughest test in the UFC. I know he fought Nardiev, which is a decent fighter, but he's currently not in the UFC. But I don't hate Nardiev. He's not a bad fighter. So I do think this is probably going to be the toughest test. So is he going to go out there and put up a big score against Jake Matthews? I don't know. Maybe. I think he can put up a decent score. I think like he's a safe cash play. Like I can see him getting some takedowns. It's just Jake Matthews, black belt himself. I don't see Brady getting a submission. I don't see Brady really getting a knockout. He's not really a knockout guy, more so a decision guy. So I do like Brady. I like him to win. I think he's safe. I do have him in a parlay with Mario Batista, but as far as DraftKings goes, it's just so hard to get there for me personally because I'm very high on, some of these other fighters up in the 9K range, and you really can't play them all because there's like, what, 6, 7 fighters up in that 9 range or near that 9 range that are pretty interesting. And it's just hard to get there for me, but I think he's fine. It's just I'm really worried about the ceiling. I think he has a really nice floor, but I'm worried about that ceiling. I don't see him getting a early finish. I don't see him, racking up a million takedowns. And I can see other fighters, doing that. I mean, I can see Nunez getting an early finish and racking up takedowns. I can see Islam Makhachev racking up a million takedowns. So it's just hard for me to get there personally with the other plays on there. But it's not an awful play. So give me Sean Brady. Give me him by decision. I don't hate the decision prop on Brady. It's like plus 150. If he wins, it's probably by decision. But yeah, I do have not much of this fight at all. Not much of this fight at all. I don't think it scores all that crazy. I can see Brady maybe putting up like a 90 piece, but on a 15-fight slate, I don't think it's going to be enough. All right, we have 21 in here. If you guys can hit the like, that would be sweet. And subscribe to the channel. Going to be on here every Saturday before the card, just giving my final thoughts on the card, talking some strategy, talking some final bets, looking to some props and all that good stuff. All right, so next we have Carlos Ulberg versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. So yeah, another weird fight here. This is more of a fade on Kennedy for me. I mean, the dude has not looked all that great. Was against Paul Craig, got submitted in the 3rd round against Darko Stosic. Was able to win that fight because Stosic lost 2 points. And he's somebody that's really big. He's intimidating, but the power doesn't look like it's there. The speed is definitely not there. The volume is definitely not there. The cardio is not there. And we haven't seen this guy for a year, so he could have made these improvements. I'm expecting some improvements, but if he's going to come in here and have a kickboxing fight with Carlos Ulberg, he's going to lose. And I will probably fade Ulberg in the future. I just don't think now's the fight. I want somebody that's going to come out here and take him down. And I have never seen Kennedy go out there and get takedowns ever. So just to think that's going to happen is probably not. So give me Ulberg here. I just whether does he finish Kennedy or does he not? I'm leaning more towards he does not finish Kennedy. Maybe goes to decision, but it's definitely possible. But Kennedy's never been knocked out. He's been submitted once by Paul Craig. It can happen. So I do have some Ulberg. And as far as, Kennedy, it was hard to get there, but I do have some because it is light heavyweight. The dude kind of hits a little bit hard. Ulberg does have 3 MMA fights. So I do have some Kennedy, like 10%. But as far as Ulberg goes, I have about 20% Ulberg as well, so I think he can put up a decent pace here, possibly find the finish. If he does not get the finish, he's not going to go optimal, but he could. It's definitely possible, so give me Carlos Ulberg. I don't hate him as a parlay piece, really, but yeah, give me Ulberg for the win there. All right, next we have Tim Elliott versus Jordan Espinoza. I kind of think this is a very important fight from a DraftKings standpoint, and I also like Elliott from a betting perspective, so yeah, Elliott's going to bring a pace, in the majority of his fights that is going to typically score well on DraftKings. I remember he scored like 170, something like that, against Luis Smolka. Took him down like 12 times, tons of advances, and he's a good wrestler. And just going through Espinoza, I know the big narrative is that 90% takedown defense, but going through the record, he hasn't really stuffed many takedowns from great guys. I mean, he stuffed a couple takedowns from some guys on the Contender Series that never made the UFC. He stuffed a lot of takedowns from Mark De La Rosa, somebody that has a 13% takedown accuracy, but I'm curious to see if he's going to stuff takedowns from Tim Elliott, a very good wrestler, somebody that has 48% takedown accuracy, somebody that averages about 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. I'm curious to see if he can stuff those takedowns from Elliott. So I like Elliott a lot. It's hard not to like him in this fight from a DraftKings standpoint just because of the price, because of the upside, because of the takedown upside. And Espinoza struggles on the mat with his submission defense. I mean, he gets taken down, he gets submitted shortly after, and Elliott's somebody that's going to go after that sub. So I do like Elliott quite a bit. He's one of my higher-owned fighters on DraftKings just because I like the price a ton. And I do have like around 40% of Elliott. So taking a big shot on Elliott here. I bet him as well. I bet him at plus 110. I took a little sprinkle on the submission prop as well. So I'm pretty high on Elliott here. Not too high on this Espinoza guy whatsoever, but if Espinoza can keep it standing, can keep it on the feet, he's going to win. He's going to have the better striking. He's going to be faster. Elliott has like no striking defense, so I get that, but I'm leaning more towards he does get Espinoza down, and I think the submission is very in play here. So give me Elliott for the win. I'm high on him here. Kepler says, Brady, do you know Mike Alexander from FA? You both seem to have close to the same DraftKings picks for UFC. I've heard of Mike. I think I saw him on Twitter once or twice. Let's see what we got here. James, it's so hard for me to play Elliott. I know. I mean, the dude, he's inconsistent. He's unreliable. He's 16-11. I get that. But Espinoza, he's unreliable himself. So James says big shot. Yes, big shot. Third highest owned. So yeah, it's just because of the upside. The takedown upside is really hard to ignore. Let's see here. RJ says don't need much to be convinced on Elliott. Michael says Elliott's DK fights total over 130 DraftKings points per fight when you factor in both fighters. By far the highest on the slate, must have both sides for DraftKings. Yep, I definitely agree with that. Both sides is probably a good idea. I do have some Espinoza because of that reason you mentioned, and you're 100% right. Just more so on the Elliott side. I have about 40% Elliott. I do have 15% Espinoza. But you're 100% right. It probably does score well. Kepler says, is that 40% in the 150? Yes, sir, it is. I'm going to be my third highest behind Amanda Nunes and Aljamain Sterling. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. James says, Elliott seems to be seems better here, but playing him is like pulling teeth. Oh, 100%. 100%. But the upside's there. Got to take a shot. All right, so we'll get into the next fight. And we have Kai Kara-France versus Rogerio Bontorin. And strictly from a DraftKings perspective, it's Bontorin for me or pass. Kai Kara-France is, has no knockouts in the UFC. Maybe one. I don't think any, honestly. And, he has some decent power, but just not going out there and getting finishes. He does have some decent volume, but, with this new DraftKings scoring system, it favors the wrestlers. It favors the grapplers. France isn't going to come out here, shoot takedowns, get down Bontorin, control him. It's just not going to happen. He's going to want to strike with Bontorin, keep it on the feet there. So I do think that France has a very good chance of winning. It's just I don't like the price on DraftKings. I'd rather honestly play Bontorin because if Bontorin wins, it's going to be because of those takedowns. It's going to be because of the control time, maybe even a finish. Kai Kara-France has been subbed twice, and Bontorin is, I believe, a black belt in BJJ, so it's definitely possible. But from a pick standpoint, I like France here, and I like him a decent amount. I do think he stuffs the takedowns. Another one of those guys that has a 90% takedown defense and a pretty decent 90% takedown defense, a great scrambling game, a great get-up game. And I know he just got subbed by Brandon Royval, but really no shame in that. So on the feet, it's France all day. If Bontorin can get down France, I do think he'll have success. It's just I'm leaning towards it doesn't happen, but if it does, it probably scores well on DraftKings. So I do have Bontorin on DraftKings. Have about 25% for that wrestling upside, for that maybe submission upside. As far as France, I think he'll be extremely low owned. Like this guy's going to be either probably the lowest or second lowest fighter in this 8K range. Like nobody's gonna play France, but maybe he can go out there and get that knockout. It's just Bontorin's never been knocked out. He has a pretty good chin. He's durable, so I'm leaning towards he does not knock out Bontorin. At that point, he's going to absolutely bust, especially with this new DraftKings scoring system. As far as a bet, I was looking at betting France, but the price just didn't get to where I wanted it to. I wanted to get like minus 110. I saw a lot of money coming in on the Bontorin side, but I'm gonna pass here as far as a betting perspective. But I do like Bontorin on DraftKings just because of that grappling upside, the takedown upside. Ethan says GPP Nunes or Adesanya. It's pretty easy for me, Nunes, and we'll talk about why in a little bit, but it's really not a question for me there. I like Nunes a lot compared to Adesanya especially. James says a lot of people have recency bias with France and Song. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. People think that Song sucks because he went to close decisions with Stamen and Marlon Vera, which is kind of crazy to think about. Those are two good fighters, and then France just got destroyed in a way by Brandon Royval, knocked down twice. So yeah, there could be some recency bias. I do think France is a decent fighter. Very winnable matchup here for him. But at the same time, if Bontorin wins, it will probably score well. So got to factor that in as well. All right. So we'll get into the next fight here. And we have Joseph Benavidez versus Askar Askarov. I don't know. I think this can score decent. Either side here, really. Just not overly high on it. I do think it most likely goes to decision, but Benavidez, when he is winning these fights, Benavidez is scoring very, very well. So I'm not saying he's going to knock out Askarov, but I don't think it's I don't think it's a crazy possibility that he does. Askarov did get hurt twice in the Moreno fight, and Benavidez does have some power, and I get the narrative here. Like, Benavidez took some damage, to say the least, in the Figueiredo fights. Where's his head at? I mean, he just got destroyed in that fight, so I get it. Is he going to look the same after that fight? I don't know, but if Benavidez shows up and looks anything like the Benavidez that did in the 2 fights ago against Figueiredo, where he was looking decent in that first round and a half there. But I think he's going to be have a really good stylistic matchup here against Askar Askarov, who's going to want to take you down. And what is Joseph Benavidez good at doing? He's good at not getting held down. One of the best scrambling abilities I've ever seen in my life. So I think Askar Askarov could get Benavidez down. It's just, is he going to hold him down? I'm leaning towards no, and I'm pretty strong on that as well. So I don't know. I think Benavidez is better on the feet here. He's going to have a speed advantage, even though the dude's 36 years old. He's going to be the better striker, more volume. And I'm just not overly impressed with Askar Askarov so far in the UFC. Going to very close fights with Pantoja, and a fight that Pantoja did take his back, took him down. Pantoja did gas out in that fight as well, just due to the pace. Benavidez isn't going to gas out. Against Moreno, it was a draw. I think that Askar Askarov lost pretty handedly there. I mean, Moreno hurt him in the first round. Moreno hurt him in the second round. Moreno dominated him in that third round. So I thought Moreno won that one. And so in 2 of his 3 fights, he's got his back taken. In all 3 of his fights, he's been taken down. Got taken down 3 times by Tim Elliott. I wouldn't be shocked if Benavidez got takedowns here. I wouldn't be shocked if Benavidez took his back in a scramble. We'll definitely see. As far as DraftKings goes, I do think this fight's somewhat important. I don't love it all that much, but I will have some, just because when Benavidez does win, he does score well. And if Askar Askarov wins, it probably means he's getting takedowns. It's just, can he hold down Benavidez? Probably not. I don't think the control time is going to be there. But as far as ownership goes, I do have, I think like around 15% of Benavidez, like a little bit more Askarov, just because that takedown upside, like 20% Askarov. So not going crazy on it. This more than likely does not find the optimal lineup. It's just with the takedowns, and maybe there could be a Benavidez finish. I do think there's a chance, but probably does go to decision. It probably scores decently, but is it enough to get on the optimal lineup at 15 fights? I'm not sure, but the pick for me is going to be Benavidez, and I also do have a bet on him as well. And especially after seeing Askar Askarov on the scales, I do like that bet even more. So give me Benavidez there. I do think this is a great stylistic matchup for him, if he is not completely shot, which, I mean, he could be. All right. James says this fight will be the one I'm on the sidelines betting-wise. Yeah, not an awful idea there. RJ says, I have a bad feeling about Joe. Didn't look like he had any fire at weigh-ins. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. But he did look like he was in really good shape. But yeah, that's another thing. Where's the fire with Benavidez here? He said it himself. He's not going to compete for another title. So yeah, where's his head at? So, let's see here. What's up, General? I see you in the chat. Okay, so yeah, we'll get to the next fight. Kyler Phillips versus Song Yadong. And yeah, so Kyler Phillips is going to be one of the more popular dogs on the slate here. And I get it. The dude's a very likable guy. He's been looking good, but he's been looking good against Cameron Else. He's been looking good against Gabriel Silva. And I've said it all week. I mean, it took Phillips 6 minutes to finish Cameron Else. It would take Song Yadong 30 seconds. It would take him 30 seconds or less to finish that Cameron Else guy. Something that should not be in the UFC. I like Song here. I like him more as a bet. The 8,800's a little iffy. I think he could pay that off, I guess, if it's an early finish. If not, he probably does not. But I get the the Kyler Phillips love. I get it, especially on DraftKings. I mean, the dude's very cheap, so I do have some, because if Kyler Phillips wins, it means he's going to be putting on a big pace. He's going to be getting takedowns. I'm leaning towards he does not, but if he does win, he does score well. So I do have some Phillips, and I do have a little bit of Song as well. I have like 17% Song, just in case he does knock him out early. And I wouldn't be completely shocked if Song did knock this guy out. I mean, he was hitting Marlon Vera with some hard shots that only a Marlon Vera can take. Marlon Vera has an unrailed chin, a chin of steel. Is Kyler Phillips going to be able to take those same shots? I'm leaning towards probably not. So, yeah, give me Song Yadong for the win. As far as DraftKings and the pricing, I think Kyler Phillips isn't an awful play. I think he's fine. And I think Song is going to be pretty low owned, honestly, especially with all the love on Phillips there. So, the pick Song on DraftKings, probably Phillips is the better play, just because of the big price tag difference of like $1,400. James says Song time. Yes, sir. So, yeah, I do have a parlay with Song and Islam Makhachev for plus 110. I love that parlay quite a bit. Two guys that I really think can win. And, but yeah, all the money seems to be coming on the Phillips side. James says, song fights, people are just trying to find a dog, but this isn't one of them. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. There always is that public dog. There's a couple public dogs this week, it seems like. But yeah, Phillips is very, very popular this week. And I get it, I guess. But he's going to close fights with Marlon Vera, Cody Stamann. Stamann did take him down 5 times, but, one of the best wrestlers in the division, no shame in that. So, yeah, give me Song here. Doc says Song Yadong has way less ways to win. He can get tapped out and finished. He will gas Song out. Yeah, that's the other narrative there. That Song is a gasser that doesn't have cardio. But that Stamann fight was a very, very high pace. He had to stuff a ton of takedowns. He did tire out in that fight. He did. He did slow down in the Vera fight a little bit. Another high paced fight. But what people don't talk about is Phillips. Slowing down in some of his fights as well. He's gassed out before as well. So. Really curious to see who is going to be fresher in that 3rd round. RJ says Kyler is more of a pump play on DraftKings, not expected to win, but in MMA you never know. Yep, you never know. Anybody on this slate can win. I mean, Megan Anderson can win, but I do think if Phillips does win, he scores well, and that's why I do have some, but I'm leaning towards he does not. All right, so Dominic Cruz, Casey Kenny. I'm going to keep this one short. I like Cruz here. As far as a pick, I did bet him at plus 118. Just a big step down going from Henry Cejudo to Casey Kenny here. I do think that Kenny's going to struggle with the movement of Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz extremely hard to hit. 71% striking defense. It's going to be a lot harder to hit him than a Haile Alatang, than a Luis Smolka. And I get it. Everybody likes Kenny. He's been active. Dominic Cruz has not won in like 4 years. I get that. But I think this is a very winnable matchup for Cruz. And I do think Cruz can go out there and get takedowns as well. Casey Kenny's been taken down 1,000,000 times in the UFC. He was taken down 12 times by Merab, 7 by Borg, 3 times by Bermudez, and taken down by other guys as well. So I think Cruz can mix in the takedowns. I do see this being close. I see this going to decision. I think a very good bet is probably this fight goes to the distance, goes to decision. I think that's probably the safest bet on this card, but I do like Cruz here. As far as DraftKings, hard to get there. I don't see this scoring well. I don't see there being a finish. I think this is the second least likely to end inside the distance. So I don't have much, if any at all, of either of these guys. It's really hard to see Dom finishing Kenny here, and I don't think there's going to be a crazy pace. And like I said, Cruz is very hard to hit. I don't think Kenny's going to be coming out here with a ton of volume, or at least landing a ton of volume. And I don't see much interaction on the mat. If Cruz does take down Kenny, I don't see any control time, really. Kenny's a great scrambler. So the picks, Cruz, DraftKings, probably not touching it. But I do think Cruz has a very good chance to win this fight if he's not completely shot. And I think this line is, honestly pretty disrespectful for Cruz to be an underdog here. I mean, Casey Kenny's he's not even ranked in the top 15. So let's see. Doc says giving Song a break by putting him up against a good up-and-coming young fighter. I mean, going from Marlon Vera, Cody Stamann, this is you got to admit this is a step down in competition. Going from Vera and Stamann to Kyler Phillips, you got to admit that. James says, I want Kenny to win, but won't bet it. Yeah, I like Kenny. I'm a big Kenny guy. I've bet him to win his past couple fights. I did not think he won the Wood fight. He got outlanded in 2 of those 3 rounds. But yeah, so give me Cruz. As far as a bet, I like it. I don't hate it, especially at plus money. But from a DraftKings perspective, probably not going to get there. All right, so this next fight I do think is pretty important on DraftKings here. Santos versus Rakic. I'm not betting either side. I think this is a close fight. If Rakic is able to take down Santos, I think he's going to have a lot of success. And I do think on the feet he can have success. But with that said, he's going to be playing with fire. So I like both on DraftKings. I think both have upside. If Santos wins, it's going to be because of knockout. If Rakic wins, it's going to be because probably of a knockout, or he takes down Santos, gets control time takedowns, and possibly a finish as well. So, yeah, I do have quite a bit of Rakic. I have like 38% Rakic. So going pretty heavy on this fight, as I do think it's going to be important. And I have about 32% Santos, which is going to be, I think, my second highest owned dog on the slate. Just because if the guy wins, it's going to be my knockout. So I like both sides. I think both sides have passed the victory of, finding the optimal lineup. My pick is going to be Rakic because I think he has more paths to win. But when you have the power of Thiago Santos, you really don't need many paths. So, should be a fun fight. Should be a great way to start off the main card. Like I said, pick Rakic, but just don't feel great about it. Definitely not betting this either side, but I do think it scores pretty well on DraftKings. All right, so getting to the next fight here, Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. I get the narrative of, Dober puncher's chance. Makhachev has been knocked out before. I do have some Dober. I didn't go crazy on it, like 13% Dober. But I like Makhachev here, and I like him a ton. I mean, he's going to go out there, somebody that's going to really benefit from this new DraftKings scoring system of control time, of takedowns. I think he scores a ton. I think he scores over 100. He's not going to come out here with a bad game plan of standing and banging with Dober. He probably strikes with him a little bit, but he's smart enough to know he's going to get takedowns here. He's going to get control time, and I wouldn't be shocked if he submitted Dober as well, somebody that's been submitted 2 or 3 times in his career. And Drew Dober does have that 58% takedown defense. I think Makhachev's honestly going to make this look easy outside of Dober landing that hard shot, and it's definitely possible. But I like Makhachev. I locked him in cash. I have Makhachev as my 4th highest owned fighter on DraftKings, around 40%. And I do think he has, one of the higher upsides on the slate and one of the safer plays on the slate as well. So, yeah, give me Makhachev. I like it quite a bit. RJ says, I want to play Rakic on DK, but I'm scared he could get knocked out. Exactly. You're scared he can get knocked out, for sure. It's definitely possible. James says, Santos is so dangerous. Yes, he is. Santos is a very dangerous guy. Hard to count him out. Hard to count the guy out. I know he looked decent in his last fight. I mean, he also knocked out Glover Teixeira like twice, but he did get ultimately finished by Glover there, which no shame in that. Glover is a legit guy. All right, so yeah, I like Makhachev quite a bit. As far as the next fight, I think this is probably the most important fight on the slate. It's going to be Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, and this is probably my highest ownership fight. I have 45% Aljamain Sterling, make it my 2nd highest own on DraftKings, and I have 38% of Petr Yan. So a ton of ownership here on a 15-fight slate, taking a stance here. I do think this has a very good chance of finding the optimal lineup. Why I have more Sterling is because I think this is a 50-50 fight. I think either guy could win this fight. I don't have a great read on who's going to win. If I had to pick a fighter to win, I guess I'd side with Yan, but like no confidence in that. But what I do know is this is 50-50. This will score well, and the price savings on Sterling. You're going to have a $600 savings on Sterling, which I think this should be lined like 8,100, 8,100, honestly. This is such a close fight. Going to be having a ton of volume on either side. Probably some takedowns mixed in as well. And I just think it scores very, very good. So, yeah, like I said, a ton of this fight, 45% Sterling. It's just hard to see this fight not ending up in the optimal lineup. I do think this gets extended. I do think it goes to the later rounds, maybe even a decision. And also another bet I like, and I did place this bet myself, I like the over 2.5. I see this getting extended. The over 2.5, I got it at around like minus 174. And I just think there's a really good chance of getting extended, unless like Sterling gets an early sub, which I'm leaning towards that does not happen, or Yan gets an early knockout, which again I'm leaning towards that does not happen. I think if Yan wins, it's either a decision or a late knockout, and I think if Sterling wins, it's probably a decision there. So, yep, probably one of the most important fights on the slate. I think in cash you can definitely stack this fight. I do think it scores well either side. I think you're getting a nice floor on each. I do think that stack's going to be popular. And out of all the title fights, if you're going to stack one, it's going to be that one. As far as GPP, your tournaments, I wouldn't stack it in 15 fights. I mean, it's possible, but on 15 fights, it's going to have to be a crazy, crazy fight. And a lot of these dogs are going to have to lose. I just don't see it happening on 15 fights. If it was like a 9-fight slate, I mean, no brainer for me. I'd probably stack this in GPPs, but 15 fights, probably not. James says Glover is the walking referee. I'm a big Glover fan. I was all over him against Santos. It was sweaty. He almost got knocked out like 3 times, but it all worked out. Kepler says Santos for you too. He had Glover, but who knows? So you're liking Santos here. Yeah, I like him as a play. Yeah, if you're looking for a bet on Santos, I think KO is probably the way to go. Plus 240, I think it is. Other than that, I don't see him really winning a decision or anything like that. Alex says, press the like button. It's free. I agree. It's free. Thank you, Alex. All right, so we'll get into the co-main event. We have Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson. And, yeah, Nunes is my highest owned fighter. I think she has multiple opportunities to finish this fight, whether it's in the first round, whether it's in the second round, whichever round she really chooses to do so. Anderson is somebody that is, obviously not championship caliber. She lands very low output, 2 significant strikes per minute. A very bad takedown defense, a very bad ground game, which she was submitted in a couple minutes by Felicia Spencer. I think Nunes, it's only going to take 1 takedown, and this fight's going to be over shortly after, honestly. But I know Nunes has went to the decision the last 2 fights. against GDR and Felicia Spencer, but in 7 of 8 of Megan's last 8 fights, they've all went to the under, so she's either getting finished early or getting the finish early herself. So I don't hate the under. I didn't pull the trigger on it, but I have a ton of Nunes, so I completely faded Megan Anderson, and I'm comfortable with that. If she wins, so be it. It will be the biggest upset in UFC history. I mean, it's possible, but I think Nunes, honestly, on her worst day, could win this fight. I have 75% Nunes. Even that, I think I could have went a little bit higher on that, but I did want to spread out that 9K range a little bit, play some Medic, play some Makhachev. So I have 75%, which is by far my highest on DraftKings. I do think she puts up a big score. And what I also noticed was when she's not fighting Shevchenko, when she's not fighting Shevchenko, she gets 100 points every single time. She's not scored under 100 points outside of fighting Valentina Shevchenko, which we all know what Valentina would do to Megan Anderson, whether they're not in the weight class or not. So, yeah, give me Nunes here. If you're looking to parlay Nunes, I wouldn't lay the minus 1400, but you could lay the minus 340 inside the distance. I don't think that's a bad look. But yeah, give me Nunes here for the win. And then finally, the main event. Yeah, I don't like this main event from a DraftKings perspective, really. I mean, I think if Adesanya wins, it's probably going to be either late in the fight or a decision. Blachowicz has a very good chin. He's been knocked out one time by Thiago Santos. And I don't know if that power is going to translate up to the light heavyweight division for Izzy. I do like him to win quite a bit. It's just I have a bad feeling about this fight. Lots of question marks with this fight. Like, what happens if Jan clinches up, is able to close the distance? What happens if Jan lands a hard shot? Because we saw in the Dom Reyes fight, I think it was maybe like a jab where Jan jabbed Reyes and his nose completely broke. I mean, this guy, he has that Polish power. So if anything, it's hard for me to get to Adesanya, especially with the ownership. I do think he's going to be fairly high owned because it's the main event, because he's Adesanya. I have Jan Blachowicz in 30% of my lineup. So I went 30% of Jan Blachowicz, taking a shot on the dog here from a DraftKings standpoint. I just have a weird feeling about this one. I think Adesanya is the much better fighter. I really do. I even think Jan's kind of overrated, honestly, but sometimes the better fighter doesn't always win. And what happens if Jan does take Adesanya down? Jan's a legit black belt. He's going to have a massive weight advantage, size advantage. So the most likely scenario is Izzy does keep this to the outside, but if Jan wins, it's gonna be a finish. But if Adesanya wins, it's gonna be like a low output, kind of sticking to the outside, moving around, maybe fourth round win or a decision win as well. Kepler says, I worry Nunes ownership is going to be crazy. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. She's easily probably the number one owned on the slate. I'd put Nunes up there. Makhachev's going to be high owned. Adesanya is going to gain some ownership as well. But yeah, Nunes, I do think is going to be highest owned on the slate. RJ says, oh my God, Reyes screwed me that night. Yeah, same. Yeah, Reyes screwed me as well. Reyes looked awful in that fight. But yeah, as far as the slate goes, I have a ton of Nunes. I think the Sterling and Jan fight is going to be important. I like Elliott. I like Makhachev quite a bit. I think the Medic and Alon Cruz fight is going to be important. So that fight, other than that, should be a pretty decent card overall. I have a ton of action on this card. I have like 10 bets. So hopefully it works out. Thank you all for hanging out. We had a decent amount of people in here for the show. And yeah, tune into Karma Media. Going to be on Thursdays and Saturdays. And then I'll be dropping some videos throughout the week as well. So hit that sub button, hit the like button, really appreciate that. And good luck on Saturday, guys. Let's win some money on the best card of